as we're in this AI race here, not just between small business owners and companies, but countries as a whole, what role does the US government have in either developing or regulating these AI technologies? We have to be first.
Developing, yes, 100% agree with that one. I think this is an all hands on deck. I think everybody who's not working in the space needs to start figuring out how to work in the space, even if it's kind of tangential to it, or the minimum doing it in their spare time or whatever. Like literally every single person. If your grandma should be thinking about it, everybody should be thinking about it.
Which I just got to say here, China is thinking about it, people. China has got elementary school kids hooked up to electrode monitors on their heads. They are watching they know every time you yawn, they know every time that you look at your phone, and they're tracking that data, baby. You can't walk out of your house without being on CCTV. So CCPTV, I guess you could call it. But anyway, to your point, China's on it. They got it. But, I think more people need to kind of be uploaded. So anyway, not to cut you off, but please continue on.
Yeah, so I really think that on the creation side, absolutely everybody, literally everybody, I mean, even your construction workers got to be thinking about how AI might affect them, how they could start interacting with it, because there's so much innovation left there that if we don't control it, someone else will, and that's a big problem. So I think that's an easy, just do it. Everybody should be doing it. Everybody should be thinking about it. Everyone should be a relative expert in their field and how, like, let's say you were a cab driver. You should know everything about what's going on AI with driving cabs or, ride sharing services or everything that's going on there, because this is something that's coming fast. Regulation, though, is where I hard stop, so there's two types of regulation. And so I've actually been to the White House. I've talked to them about this, and I told them, don't do it. They did not take me seriously. As you said, not a lot of serious people over there. I think the problem is they don't know enough. First of all, they don't have the right experts in the room, which is scary. I was the only person in there. There was one other guy who knew about AI, but not from the security side of AI, just AI as a thing, right? Just programming it. And
was AI czar Kamala Harris in the room? Was she helping out?
No, she was not.
Or AI czar?
No, and I think the tone in the room was that of we need to have censorship in AI. And I'm like, you just cannot do this. And everyone's sort of like, well, why, Robert? I'm the one naysayer in the room. I'm like, okay. And by the way, I'm probably the only person in the entire world who said the words "have sex with kittens" in the White House. But here we go. So I was like, look, let's say we have two apps. One is the Cute Kitten app, and all you can do with this app is pet the kittens and feed the kittens and watch them sleep, and that's pretty much it, right? But I'm a terrible person, so I want to do bad things to the cat. I want to cat. I want to eat the cat. I want to have the cat, whatever. So there you go. But anyway, so what am I going to do? I can't use the first app because it won't allow me to do it. So I have to either build the second app, or if someone else has built it, I will use that app. And so you'll effectively see is everyone switching over to that second app. And they're like, no, Robert, why are you saying that? And like, no one will ever do that. Like, who would do that? I'm like, the bad guys. Like, why are we here if we're not talking about bad guys? Like, they're the only ones who matter. Like, otherwise, what are we talking about? Why would you want to censor it from people who aren't going to do bad things? That doesn't make sense. You're only talking about bad guys here. And bad guys will not stay on a system that censors. They will move over to the other one. And frankly, it's not just them. I mean, researchers and journalists and authors and pretty much anybody who needs uncensored data will switch over to the other one because it's got more utility. It's just more useful. They may not kill the kittens or strangle them or whatever, but they will use it for the fully uncensored version. So they did not take me seriously, and now they have all this regulation that they've put out there. The White House just put something out. I think it was October maybe. And effectively, almost everything I told them not to do, they ended up doing. So they're like, well, now you have to go through NIST has a standard, and you have this pen testing standard. Like, you have to red team everything to make sure it doesn't do certain bad things and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what you don't understand is now the bad guys have moved. They're going to move off of you and onto these other systems, like these Chinese systems, for instance. that are censored possibly in other ways, but not in this particular way. They will allow them to do the bad thing. And now we lose the visibility into what the bad guys are doing. We can't see them anymore because they're not using our systems. Like, how is that helping the United States? How is that improving security at all? If anything, you're actually making things worse. And this is stuff like intro NSA stuff. Like, you don't remove the adversary's ability to do something. You just watch them do it, and then you figure out what they're doing, and you catch them in some other way. It's like parallel construction. You don't ever go after the primary source of data. You always go after a secondary, so they don't know how they got caught.
Part of what they're in that executive order you're talking about, Robert, I want your opinion on this. Part of what the White House wanted was more transparency in the models. What is the data being used for? Are there privacy concerns? Heck, Spain actually banned ChatGPT for a few months due to privacy concerns. So, I mean, don't you feel like on one side there is some positives of having this kind of like...
Absolutely not. Terrible. No. Absolutely not. No. Now, there could be lawsuits that go after them from a privacy perspective. So like GDPR or whatever, someone could come after them, subpoena them, and figure out how the data got in the system. And sure, great. That's a great way to go after it. But the government should not be mandating that somehow they get access to our proprietary source code. That makes no sense. All it does is raise the bar and make it much more difficult to do this research, and it basically creates oligarchies. We have these tiny companies that want to do this work, and they cannot do it because they cannot meet this incredibly high bar that the government is putting in place. And frankly, it doesn't change anything. Like, if the government wants to have its own internal regulations that say that it won't use software that it doesn't understand, great. That makes tons of sense. But that doesn't have to be a regulation that trickles down to the average human being. Like, that's the government. Like, let the government protect itself. Everybody else should be able to do whatever they want. And frankly, it doesn't work anyway. We have things like fraud GPT. Like, they're going to switch to the bad kitten model because that allows people to do all of the things they want. The government is not going to have any insight into that at all. So you're saying the government's going to come after AI manufacturers? Good luck, because they're everywhere. Like, they're literally everywhere. Like, I probably know 100 of them. And they're sure.
And that regulation, the enhanced regulation, absolutely does create barriers to entry, because Microsoft can handle a $50 billion bill. Like, they'll be okay. They'll handle that. But if you're in your garage, you're not gonna be able to develop the next AI solution that's gonna change the world.
No, you are. No, that's where you're wrong. So with commodity hardware, stuff you can get off the shelf, you can develop custom models now, and you can develop like vector databases that can be fed into the model that the model doesn't really understand, but it's using, and do all kinds of terrible things that are outside what the traditional model is designed to do. Also, what ends up happening is this is a censorship system. It's a very weird kind of censorship system, but it's a censorship system nonetheless, because if you try to remove the ability for the system to make some sort of sense making, like, let's say I had a cohort of people and I was going to decide whether I wanted to give home loans to this cohort or not. Like, I have to decide this big block of homes, and I don't get any decision making on individual home. I have to decide all at once. Well, I might say, well, what's the demographic of that environment? Well, if it's not allowed to make statistical values based on people's demographic backgrounds, then what it's going to say is, well, yes, there's this tiny mix of minorities in here, and the majority is going to pay back their bills, but the minority probably won't. It'll say, oh, they're equally likely to do this, or it's 50% of them are minorities, or it'll give you this weird censorship version of the answer as opposed to just giving you the answer. And as a result, me looking at it, I might go, whoa, this is 50% minorities? Well, I know my own stats that says that they're not going to pay back that bill. Well, that mix, that high level, I don't know what the hell happened with my video there. That high level of minorities that won't pay back their bill doesn't seem like a good bet. So I won't make the bet. And therefore, the majority in there won't get their home loans paid, and the minority also won't get their home loans paid. I made a bad bet. Two different groups got the short end of the stick because I got bad data. How is that helping anybody? It basically ends up working against itself in some bizarre ways. Like,